Welcome to the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. This podcast is for those who seek answers from above, guidance and magical inspiration.
Immerse yourself in the realms of magic, angels, fairies, unicorns, dragons, and so much more. I'm Kirsty Jandrell, and I'm delighted to be here with you today.
And I am Kate Rajba. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. Today, a special time because we have ourselves to ask each other and dive into the topic of the divine feminine, walking the path of love and priestess presence. So Kirsty, who is not better to chat than ourselves? Into that, and there's loads around the divine feminine right now, and there's the whole movement, the feminist movement. There's loads around the topic, and I would really love to hear and see your view in that. As we know, there's always the healthy approach and maybe the one not so healthy. So I hope we're gonna touch upon on that. But to start, we're just gonna dive straight in. What does the concept of the divine feminine mean to you, Kirsty? And how can people connect with it in daily lives? What is it all about? How would you describe it?
Hi, thank you, Kate, and welcome everybody. We've had this topic on the back burner for quite a while now, haven't we, Kate? So we're really excited to bring it through because, as you say, it's ever present and at this moment really crucial, I feel, in our development as humanity collectively. So the concept of the divine feminine, to me, it's an expression of energy. As we understand, everything is energy, everything vibrates, and we have, all of us, irrespective of our gender, we have divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy running through us, and the whole world has that. And in my understanding, when we look back over the last 2000 or so years, we've had an imbalance basically in our energies on a global, actually probably multiversal level. And the scales, as a Libran, I like a bit of balance, and the scales have been tipped in favor of too much, really, overtly, almost toxic masculine energy. And I'm not talking about men, because men have been victims of this as much as women. But if we look at the systems that we've been living under, the patriarchal top-down systems, which have been using traditional masculine energies such as action, doing, power, those are very important qualities, but they've been overused and almost in a toxic way, so that our world has become quite constricted and quite oppressive, and we've had levels of oppression and suppression of people's individual expressions and soul expressions. And to me, that's why now, when we see the rise of the divine feminine, we're seeing a world that is actually coming into balance, because we need both. We need, and I'll just explain what I understand by what we're talking about when we mean divine feminine and divine masculine. The divine masculine can be thought of as things that are quite active. If we're thinking of yang energy, solar energy, action, power, self-empowerment, doing, and a feminine energy more as the opposite of that. The yin and yang sign is really helpful to think about that, sort of the complementary and contrasting energies that come together in such a beautiful whole. The feminine qualities, the divine feminine energies, are that of receptivity, of surrender, of allowing, of being in flow. Energies that we see around us when we look at the natural world, when we look at the cycles of the moon, when we look at the cycles of the day, the night, even cycles of water, when we see the rain fall and then float back up to the clouds. It's that energy which is, to me, the embodiment of the divine feminine energy. And we need both. We need the structure of the masculine, we need the flow of the divine feminine. One of my beautiful teachers, Elaine Doherty, always talks about this analogy of the riverbank, and the contrast of those energies. So if you think of a river, we need the banks, we need the solid structure of the banks of the river. But for the healthy water to continue, we need the flow. So we need the flow of the energy of the water. And that perfectly, to me, illustrates how the divine masculine and the divine feminine work in harmony and in unison. So yeah, so for me, I mean, I could talk about this probably for hours, but for me, that is why we're seeing now, I believe, the divine of the rise of the divine feminine in all of us, as we're acknowledging the value in the softer qualities in nature. Yes, we need the structure, but we also need the flow as well. How do you feel about that, Kate? Does that
How
resonate with
much
you,
more
love?
can I add to it? You're like, that's like exactly how I would describe it. And then again, I always see the earth and the universe, right? And the roots in the earth, the roots in the universe, or Merkaba, the pyramid going up and then the pyramid going down. And what I've noticed in myself and in other people as well, on the path of the ascension, very often we would tend only to connect up. We would tend to, live from the heart chakra up. And how about the lower chakras? This is only like recent that, we need the body, we need the roots, we need, this vessel. And what's the best way to control is to cut the roots when you have the tree, right? It's like you cut the roots and then you have the full power over that being. So for me, those roots with Pachamama, with Mother Earth, the elements, like nature is the embodiment of the divine feminine, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so beautifully put. And that's it. We need both. And I think you're absolutely right. In the last few years, especially, especially in the spiritual community, the tendency is to live in the upper chakras and to want to connect up, but it's actually through the depth of the roots and the groundedness and the embodiment and pulling the energy down that we can have that strong connection upwards. So it's beautiful the way that you describe that. Oh, thank you. So let's look at Kate, in your view, how can someone identify when they are out of alignment with their feminine energy? Perhaps they're not able to feel that but don't know it. And what steps can they take to restore that balance, Kate?
So first of all, I would ask myself, what are the symptoms of generously being in an imbalance, right? And then we dive in. What is it all about? So, first of all, just acknowledging the fact I feel I'm out of balance. I feel I'm out of harmony. I feel like I'm not being myself. And and it touches both men and women, right? We're talking about the energy because it's regardless, right? So in myself, or my friends, or how I observe it very practically, let's come back to the practicality, not to be too philosophical maybe about it. But when the energy is outside, when our focus is not here, not in the center, but it's kind of outside. It's like not having that connection with ourselves all the way to the feet, all the way. And then again, all the other things that you've already mentioned as well, constantly chasing any struggles, especially in women, or we can touch that very strongly to the relationship as well. If there's any struggle or chasing or anything, for me, that's already a sign I'm out of my feminine. I'm in my masculine, chasing, running, doing. And then it's interesting, especially for us women, when we work or we have our business or when we do whatever, because for men, I think it manifests differently. And I think it's important to say it as well on the essential, but for men, the spirituality is going to be a bit different, how to approach it, how to navigate through it, right? But for women, the moment we start, and the universe is gonna show that us, and it's such a paradox. I mean, we think it's a paradox that, oh, the moment I stop doing, chasing, having the structure, everything's gonna collapse, and it's amazing what magic happens once we embody the divine feminine, once we embody that energy. How actually everything is opposite. Everything is for us. We're here to receive. We're the vessels, we're the containers, we're that bank of the river. We are the, maybe not the bank of the river, but we are the vessel, we're the container, we're the cauldron, right? For the masculine to, what else? Out of harmony. All the diseases, feminine diseases, that what just came to me. It's so profound nowadays, isn't it, with women, not being able to get pregnant, all of the hormonal, all of it, I think, is the part of the imbalance. That's the imbalance, but the need, and the universe craving us to come back to the balance, craving the universe, the earth, the spirit, however we find it, craving us to come back to the balance, craving us to bring back that connection. How would you describe yourself? I know I was kind of floating all around, but that's how the feminine energy works. I
Exactly. You're
won't have the
spiraling
structure
around.
today. I will not have the structure because the topic demands it.
Oh, Kate, I think that's gorgeous. There's so many little gems in there. Yeah, you described the chalice, the vessel, that the womb space, that creating from that still point, the dark place of emptiness, the void. That to me is the part of the divine feminine. And yeah, it's that actually realizing, wow, we've been conditioned in our society to set goals, to set targets, and do. And I think, especially I'm a woman of a certain age, and I grew up in it at a certain point in time, and certainly for me, growing up as a little girl in the 70s and 80s, we were riding the cusp of the first wave of feminism, if you like, and we were sold the dream that you can have it all. You can be the career woman, you can be the wife, you can be the amazing lover, and all of these things. When in actual fact, it was driving us to exhaustion. Um, and recognizing that in yourself, and that sort of that real wisdom from within our body, from within our heart space, our womb space, that actually to take that rest and to take that still point, that's where the magic happens and the creativity flows, and we can connect to our essence. Exactly. So yeah, just really seconding what you've already said, Kate. So I think taking that pause and being out in nature is just so important to emphasize, which kind of leads us into the next one, doesn't it, a little bit?
Yeah, I would follow that, because we not only to talk about the negative aspect, but practicality, just giving it all out there. What advice would you give, Kirsty, if anyone feels like that? And I find it's and then again, trying to connect with the divine feminine again. you cannot do it from the masculine perspective, from the masculine energy. And it's like, and I meet that, actually it just hit me very often. Okay, I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna connect with my divine feminine. Like, this is again coming from the masculine energy. It's impossible. So what advice would you give, in this, it's so fast-paced world, it's so masculine dominated, and even trying to connect, and still connecting, being in that masculine position, what advice would you give to reconnect?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's such a wise observation, isn't it? And I'm going to schedule some time to connect with my divine feminine, and I'm going to do it between 11:45 and 12 noon exactly. Yeah, it doesn't quite work like that, does it? I think it really is allowing yourself that time to step out of the busyness, and however that looks, whether that's sitting listening to some music, whether it's doing one of my favorites is doing some adult coloring books or something. I love that sort of thing. But I mean, music's a great one. Allowing yourself to dance around the kitchen, when no one's looking, is fabulous. Something that allows you just to step outside of those responsibilities and be in your joy, really. To me, that's it. And that is when the beauty starts to happen and the magic starts to happen, and you start to actually remember. I think that this is another quality of the divine feminine wisdom and the practices. It's that remembrance of who you are at a very soul level, in your essential self. And when we're busy, when we're distracted, when we're running through our to-do list, there's no space to remember. And we don't have to remember. I'm not talking about remembering who we were in a past life, but just remembering that feeling of what it means to be you and who you are at your very essence. When you take away everything else, all your roles and your patterning and all of that, what sits at the heart of that, what's in that divine spark, that gem. And to me, it's anything. I mean, walking in nature is fabulous because it just connects you with that human resonance straight away, doesn't it? Brings down your anxiety, empties thinking mind, and it can only be there for 5 minutes, and straight away you can be connected. So yeah, so much really, I think. But I think it's just such a personal thing, that I wouldn't like to be prescriptive, but just finding what that is and playing, allowing that to be a.
Would you say overlapping and closing all, the little nuggets into one would be to feel rather than to do, to allow ourselves to feel? And I think this is like lacking, this is like main top one, top of the top, is just to allow ourselves to feel. And then in whichever way that helps us, like you just said, being in nature, that's going to help us. Dancing, that's going to help us to actually connect and actually feel our body, feel our emotions. Wouldn't you say that would be the essence of the reconnecting? And then comes with the practice as well, I suppose. At the beginning we might just, 2 minutes might be too much, right? But then expanding that, and just, I would say the main thing is having the intention, the awareness, which is already, once the intention, the awareness is there, it's like job is almost done, then just done, dusted, right? Then having the intention, and then allowing intentionally, I allow myself to feel. And then it's beautiful, once we make the decision of anything in our lives, the universe will support that.
Yes,
As I say
yes,
that, my ear is ringing.
yes.
So yeah, confirmation. Yeah, we do that. We serve that for you guys. Just watch for the signs. Um, so allowing to feel, and then once that intention is in place, then just watch the surroundings, watch the environment, watch the reality, and it will be provided for us. And of course, working on the belief systems, because then we're like, oh, the whole victim and everything else that's playing out in the background. We're doing the work, right? Shadow work, everything else. We're gonna talk more about that probably a
Mm.
bit later with the continuation of this. But main thing is just to feel, allowing ourselves to feel. How big one is that? I think that if anyone in the world would have 5 minutes a day just to feel, this world would be completely different. Don't you, wouldn't you say so, Kirsty?
Absolutely. I think that's such a fundamentally important point, that distinction between, being in the thinking mind and the, as it's known in yoga, the monkey mind, the chatter, that must do this, must do that, but dropping down into the body and, yeah, feeling and allowing yourself to feel emotions and not numbing out, and it being actually okay to feel sadness, grief, anger, all of that,
Isn't it
you
incredible how
know?
this whole world is constructed, and every each there's it's every each corner just not to feel. Isn't it incredible how it's constructed? Everything around such a distraction.
Yes,
Isn't it incredible? Masterpiece, right?
it
Just to
really
not to
is.
feel.
You it is, and it's seeing through that, isn't it? And seeing through the distractions that are placed there to stop us from actually realizing the magnificence of who we are. And it's when we're able to cut through those distractions and connect with
Would you
that's
say,
when the
because
magic
it's
starts.
coming to me, because you we would describe it as the void, the womb space. We first thing we have, it's a lot of shame around that. That's one,
Mhm. Mm,
but also fear. And I've
mm,
noticed embracing that energy, that there would be fear around it. And
mm.
not only from myself, but from the outside. The moment you become that, there's like, oh no, 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 she's, oh no, no, no. And then having all of those goddesses, right? And Medusa, all of Hecate, like all of them being turned into, oh yeah, she's the bad one, she's with the devil. Is that whole, would you say, is that whole fear around, because it's so powerful?
I would. I think there's so much wisdom in that. I mean, if we think about it in very basic energetic biological terms, this is the source of all life, human life, the womb, the dark space, that space of creation. Um, and yeah, if we look back, I mean, throughout history, um, or her story, or her story, as it perhaps should be presented now. Um, there've been so many attempts to suppress that energy. Whether we look at um, the witch hunts, whether we go back to, looking at yeah, there's so many examples. I mean, we could go back thousands and thousands of years, and a lot of that has been that suppression of that power because of the fear. And there's actually nothing to fear, because it's the most beautiful energy. It's the energy that creates worlds. Um, and that's the energy that we can all connect with, whether we have a physical womb or not. It's that potential lives within all of us, with all of our beautiful physical vessels and in our energetic vessels. So yeah, and I really truly believe that now we're reaching a point, we're not quite there yet, but we're reaching a point where that is actually going to become celebrated, as it was for thousands and thousands of years. Um, so yeah, that's such a beautiful point, Kate. Thank you. Thank you. Leading on from that, Kate, this takes us into our next question, really, which is, what role does this intuition have? What role does intuition play in harnessing this female energy that we all hold? And how can we learn to trust that more, to trust that intuitive feeling? Would you have advice on that?
I would come back again into feeling, because the more we feel, the more our intuition, our connection with our intuition becomes stronger, right? So it's kind of like a muscle that's there, and to distinguish the thin veil between ego and the intuition as well. That's an interesting one, especially at the beginning of the path. I've noticed that was a big one for me personally. What is my imagination? What is the ego? What is the actual intuition? And there is always that first spark, and it's interesting in an addiction world. It's I think it's in therapy written. I've seen it somewhere that we don't want to quit something, we don't want to finish, we want to collect the moments before. So let's say I would have an urge to, I don't know, um, any addiction, right? So not to cut the addiction straight away, but to connect with the feeling just before. And the same kind of the intuition would work, just to connect, just slightly, not okay from now on I'm so intuitive, I'm connecting, and then there's lots of that shame coming. And I see that with the students that they come, for angel healing, to learn that there is that is that expectations towards ourselves, that I'm straight away I need to be a master, and it we never are, and we always are at the same time, right? So just harnessing and connecting with the moments, just collecting the little moments and celebrating them, embracing them. And I love that you mentioned joy in that. I absolutely love that you at the very beginning you mentioned joy. You know, when we have the joy of the experience, that regardless what kind of experience that, regardless what kind of feeling or emotion that is, I'm like, wow, I can feel. I didn't feel for so long, regardless how shitty sometimes it might seem. But wow, I will celebrate myself that I am embracing that. How would you connect with that? How would you relate the intuition and all this, Kirsty?
I think it's as you say, it's developing that muscle memory, isn't it? And definitely when you do first start on the path, it's can be difficult to discern between the little ego voice and that true thing. But again, it's coming back to the body and really feeling it, and then trusting. And you just kind of, it's really hard to describe for me, but it's just that full body knowing, when people say, oh, I got a full body, yes, it's that unequivocal, absolutely, that feels right. There's no question. There's no, oh, I have to write a pros and cons list. You just know. It's just a knowing. Um, and I love that you touched on shadow work, because that's massive as well, isn't it? I think we could spend a whole episode talking about that, which we probably will at some point. But it's also deepening into that shadow work, which is, for me, that means becoming aware of feelings or patterns or parts of us that we've repressed or we can't see because we've hidden them away because of trauma or hurt, and actually bringing them into the light so that we can bring them into ourselves and say, well, actually, that's okay, that's okay to feel that. And that's a big part in, us working in as light workers, to embrace that. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But that again is part, I feel, of developing your intuition, because without embracing that, it almost feels like there's uh, an element missing in the intuition because there's stuff that's repressed. So shadow work again is
I
a
would also add with the
amazing.
intuition that
Mm.
it's not reserved for the special ones. Everyone has.
Mm.
I feel like I want to say it, okay? Everyone has gifts. Everyone has intuition.
Yes.
And might play out and see a bit differently. And I would kind of encourage to have our own self-discovery of our intuition, because it sings differently with every person. And I did that on my side, because I was like, what is that feeling in me? Because I would sense something, let's say, in my stomach. I'm like, is it yes? Is it no? Should I be careful? Or is my fear and I have to do it? So then they're different feelings and they might seem very similar. So as I said, probably lovely, to have the journal, to have the journey, and then the more we do our self-discovery, it's interesting. It's like, the being within us that communicates, it's like a friendship or a relationship, right? We meet someone and we don't know. It's like we put effort and we put efforts. Like maybe not the best way to describe it, but we enjoy the process of discovering. And the more we spend time with that person, the more we discover them. Our communication is becoming clear, and we tend to have our own little, maybe quirky or funny or nice ways of communicating. And it's the same with treating the intuition like a friend. Mm.
Yeah, I love that, treating it like a friend. And yeah, everybody has it. That's such a good point. Everybody has intuition. And again, it's that, I think it's worth noting also that it's a quality that hitherto has not been celebrated traditionally in our society, which again is changing. So I think the
And
more we can
speaking of the
embrace it.
society, to
Mm,
conclude our chat today, and I think we're going to have another part to this because it's such a huge one, and I think it's really needed now. And then
yes.
probably we're going to touch upon more about the priestess's presence, how that energy plays out. So
Mm.
to conclude, Kirsty, how would reconnecting with the divine feminine contribute personal healing, but also the collective? And I think we can come back to it and evolve that, because it's such an interesting one, right?
It is, it really is. But I think I feel personally that this is a priority for each and every person incarnated at the moment to do this, because I see it as, you know, us being these beautiful divine beings, all each and every one of us having this human experience, and we each have access and have running through us these divine feminine and divine masculine energies. When we can connect them and truly, truly celebrate them, be aware of them, and integrate them into our bodies, our minds, and our spirits, that's when we have this inner marriage, this inner beloved, this harmony within ourselves. And from that point, I believe this is where we are truly, truly able to sink into self-love. Without that unity, that harmony, that union of those two polar opposites, we're always going to be slightly conflicted. So when we can bring those into alignment within ourselves, we can then really start to love ourselves. And from that point, we can then truly, truly start to love everyone else and everything else. And I believe that's one of the most important practices that we can all do, because if you imagine, if we're all in this state of self-love, there's no war, there's no conflict, there's no disharmony, because we're in that elevated state of being in that frequency of love, and all flows from that in that heart center. So for me, it's such an important topic. What do you feel, Kate?
I love how you conclude that, and it reminds me, the fractals, the butterfly effect. How would we like to have peace and harmony in the world if we are conflicted inside? And we always start with ourselves, work on that, of course, do our best. But I'd say always start with ourselves. And the more the marriage happens within, and the more harmony, the more marriage. And this is the part of it. It's like, and it reminds me, it's like we have legs, and like I have legs, and why wouldn't I use them?
Exactly.
No.
Yes,
It's like
exactly.
they're there for something. Come on, use me, connect with me. Yeah, I think it's the main one, diving in and reconnecting. And that's like fractals, so we have the whole universe within us inside. So doing that, that's the biggest, because very often I've noticed, especially now, the freedom movement, everything that's happening, it's always like outside, outside, do, starting with ourselves, and then out of it everything grows. But first the seeds inside and the whole universe inside.
Exactly. exactly. So beautifully put. And that's it. The outside world is a reflection of as within, so without. So when we're all, and I'm not suggesting that we all have to be perfect, but when we are more at peace, then we will see that reflected in the
Then
external.
we will actually see for what things are clearer,
Yeah,
right? Then the
yeah,
clarity comes in, then the
exactly.
wisdom comes in. How can we be clear? How can we make even right decisions if we're conflicted inside and disconnected?
That connection, isn't it? Connection to self, and then connection to everything,
And the divine
to
feminine
yeah,
is
exactly.
the huge container and a big part of it. Mm.
Oh,
I hope we're gonna, I mean, I don't hope, I know we will continue with that because time is up and it's, as I said, it's actually 1144. Perfect.
yay!
Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Universe, for the confirmation. I would love to continue that later on, and I hope our viewers and listeners could share their experiences as well because we're going to continue. And if there are any questions, right, or their view, because this is a huge one, isn't it? And I think, and I value always every each person contributing to that. I think we all need to hear it and share that experience. And then again, it's not like us talking as individual, is the whole synergy, is the whole collective.
Yes,
That's what it's all about.
it is. Yes, thank you, Kate. It's so true. Please, please do let us know, because the more we can talk about these, the more energy it has, and it's just, we're all in it together. So it's so beautiful.
Thank you so
Oh,
much, Kirsty.
thank
I'll see you
you.
in the next one.
We
Bye.
will see you in the next one. Have a
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful rest of the day, everyone. And please, if you feel called, do subscribe to our channel, or even like the episode. That would be wonderful.
That's a big one. Or comment anything you guys do, any activity is always helping a lot because it's,
We're so grateful,
yeah,
aren't we?
yeah. And
Oh,
we send the energy and it's coming always back. So it's always those, I always encourage everyone because it's not about us to receive that, but it's the
no,
more we give,
it
it's
is.
bouncing back and coming back. Thank you,
It is
Kirsty. Fantastic
beautiful.
day.
Thank you,
Mwah.
my love. Take care, everybody. Love, love.